Welcome along then to another big match build-up show, and this episode is sponsored by OneFootball, the app that brings you all the latest news, stats and live scores all in one place. If you haven't already, do make sure you download it, check it out, click the link in the description below. So, despite last Friday's defeat to Liverpool, we still maintain a small cushion above the drop, and we've got nothing to be ashamed about the result at the end of the day. And of course, there are grievances, but we will dig deeper into those later on in the show. But for now, it is back-to-back home games, and this Saturday, the wounded Wolves, they head to St Mary's on the back of their FA Cup semi-final heartache. So, on this week's show, we discuss with the Archers Road End blog what Saints must do for the weekend, and as the finishing line is just above the horizon. And as for the opposition, I find out from the old gold and black, will it be desolate or determined Wolves at St Mary's after their Wembley woes?
If we play with intensity and play with the same vigour that we did, I don't think league position matters anymore. I think that we need to put our early season form behind us and look at what we've got now. And what we've got now is a good attacking team. And I think we can win on Saturday.
He talks a lot about character and about bouncing back from defeats. This is the biggest test of their character that they've ever had under Nuno in the 2 years that he's been in charge now. So I trust him to do the right thing. But as players, it's going to be very difficult to get yourselves motivated for that.
As usual, now the episode is available to download in the card above my head if you're watching on YouTube, or available on more audio platforms below the show. And if you're already listening along, thank you for joining us. I'm intrigued to find out where you're listening from. We've now got analytics in countries all across the world, so very much intrigued to see where you're listening from. Anyway, less of that and more of this. What will the Wounded Wolves do this weekend? What do you think? Let me know your score predictions in the comments. But now, join us for our Southampton versus Wolverhampton Wanderers big match build-up show. So welcome along then to our first half of this Wolverhampton Wanderers big match build-up show. I was getting worried here, but finally got Ben from the Archers Road End blog back on the line. Good to see you again. How are you, mate?
You're right. Yeah, sorry. All good, thanks. You?
Not too bad. I suppose this is a chance we could reflect on Friday's game, and then we'll get into Wolves, But it was a 3-1 defeat in the end on Friday night, and I suppose this is our chance to be biased away from the mainstream Liverpool love affair. But it started so quickly, though, aggressive, high-pressing, across from deep. Bertrand finds Højbjerg to nod it on, and Shane Long fires home his 50th Premier League goal.
Yeah, I think we've got certain players that are absolutely nailed on fan favourites, and then we've got Shane Long. But you look at him and he's popping up now and then, and he loves scoring against Liverpool. And I think that a lot of people say work rate doesn't convert to too much. In terms of, when you're a striker, working hard is very good, but you have to be able to convert it. Shane's not necessarily the best at that, but he's always getting into those positions, and I think that even though he doesn't always convert, being in those positions every so often, it just crop up and put the ball in the back of the net, and good on him, because he never gives up, he never lets his head drop. You have some strikers who go out from time to time and they just, you can tell within 5 minutes of a game that they're just not interested or just not up for it. You never get that. You never get that with him. Yeah, he's not got he's not the fastest. He's not the fastest striker to 50 Premiership goals, unlike Mo Salah. But he is absolutely, I think, a good player for us, and I've said before, he reminds me very much of Brett Ormerod in that he just works hard and works hard and works hard.
And he could have easily had a second. He sort of missed a sitter really, and it bounced off Van Dijk. It could have well been an own goal. How good that would have been, but it's what could have been really.
Well, he presses people into mistakes as well. We've seen that, we see that over and over again. And whilst he can press people into mistakes and doesn't always necessarily convert into something, he's always there doing it. He did it at the Leicester game. I would say he was a key part of the Leicester away game when he started up front for us. He pressed the Leicester defence into mistakes. So that's what he does really, and fair play to him. People look at him whenever we've got him on the team sheet and think, oh, okay, we won't be getting much. But himself and the whole team absolutely played. I thought they fought for 80 minutes, matched Liverpool completely, and I think that we've got a lot to be proud of from that display. And I think that if you would have put any team out there against us on Friday night, barring Liverpool and City, that would have been 3 points for us.
I mean, yeah, we have to be pleased with the efforts. So certainly, the first half as well, where we pushed them high as well. But I suppose that's enough of the positives for now. I mean, we could even say we feel aggrieved by VAR again. Keita eventually with the equaliser in between the two defenders, but it's the build-up play that we feel aggrieved about. And on reflection after the replays, I couldn't quite see it in real time, but it is Salah that's in an offside position. I mean,
that's the difficulty with not having VAR, but I think we've also benefited from not having VAR this season as well. It's galling because it's Liverpool, and it's galling because it's happened to us more than once. That it's potentially cost us points, but I think that on the whole, I'm not. I don't like to dwell too much on the decisions. I still think on the balance of play, Liverpool deserved to win. They had a little bit extra in their tank for the last 10 minutes of the game. So there's a good case of VAR. Although I think that I saw someone discussing that with VAR, it wouldn't have necessarily even been as clean cut because they allow a bit of leeway in the decision making for a defence to potentially reset itself before the decision is made. So if there's a call like that, it still might not necessarily go in our favour next season. So yes and no. The decision didn't go our way. Hopefully, against Wolverhampton, we may get a decision that does go our way in that sense. So
if we talk about their second goal as well, we find ourselves caught in possession. I suppose fair play to Ralph. We did roll the dice a little bit. We went for broke, and I suppose at that time we pushed too many forward and eventually punished for it. And it was always going to be difficult to get back into the side. And I think at 2-1, you always thought our heads had dropped and Liverpool were in the ascendancy.
Yeah, and you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't if you're Ralph. Because I think that when we commit players forward and we get caught like that, everyone will kind of get on the team's back. But then again, we've seen before where when we're at the games, when we start sitting back, the fans get edgy and nervous as well. So I think that it's just a situation where the game pretty much played out as we expected it to be. It's just that our performance was much better. And yeah, the team dropped because the team had matched them for so long. We'd matched them player for player for so long. And then something like that happens, and naturally the players will be a little bit frustrated. But all in all, no, I can't fault the players' performance, and I think we lost to a very good side who have spent a lot of money. And I think that next season, hopefully, if we stay in this division, those are the sort of games where we'll be looking at nicking points, and we're already nicking points. We're already starting to nick points from top 6 teams, which is a testament. I don't think we'd have been anywhere near Liverpool, which we weren't when we faced them at Anfield when Hughes was manager. This time, we matched them, and I think that that's a testament to Ralph really, and how he set the team up. He's got them believing again, and I think the fear's gone.
And I think you're right. I think we did look a bit leggy in the final third of the game and couldn't quite get close enough. And it was very much sort of routine in the end. I mean, it's water under the bridge as far as I'm concerned. It's always going to be difficult. But the most thing that I'm annoyed about is the amount of Liverpool fans sitting with us in the home ends. And when we scored, I counted dozens of people still sat on their bloody arse when we scored our goal. And then when they put their third in, I saw, almost hundreds of people sat there with their camera phones recording their celebrations. The club seriously have to do something to kind of cut this out. But it happens every time when all the big clubs are in town.
It's unacceptable. I think it's absolutely unacceptable, and the club needs to take action on it. I think there needs to be stricter criteria for when these stricter criteria, stricter security. And I think that it's a problem because I'm not naive. We're playing in a huge league, and Liverpool are, in terms of legacy and in terms of history, they're a global brand. And so you're going to get people supporting them from all over the world, and you're going to get people supporting them kind of down here in Southampton, bafflingly. And it happens. People like to follow success. But the one thing I think is that when you're in a home end, you're meant to be able to be surrounded by people who actually are going to share the experience with you. It's incredibly frustrating. Football's a passionate game, and it's as much for the Liverpool fans' safety as it is for our atmosphere, to be honest. Because I've seen situations where an opposing fan has got into the home end and started celebrating, and I've seen people get punched. I've seen scuffles break out. It's ridiculous. And it only takes one drunk idiot, whether they're a home fan or a away fan, sat in that end, to cause a huge problem. So I get that it's difficult for the club because these people, these fans, they're not going to be kind of sneaking in wearing full Liverpool kit. But
I have heard reports of people actually going into the Northern, into Block 41, 42, wearing a full Liverpool jacket on Friday night, and eventually they did get ejected, which is fair for the stewards to do that.
Well, they shouldn't be getting through. You have to ask what's happening at the ticket, at the point of entry, because we get searched. We get searched. People are always checking, keys, mobile phones, so on and so forth. Have you got anything you can throw and stuff like that? But it's like, are you actually going to check that someone isn't wearing another team's colours? I mean, I know Bristol City did that a few weeks ago when Leeds came to visit, because they got reports that there were about 200 Leeds United fans planning to come and sit in the city end, and they ejected a good proportion of them and made sure that they couldn't get into the game. Why we can't do that as a Premier League team with decent security and a bit of forethought is beyond me. And I think that really it's frustrating. It's not on those Liverpool fans, it's on the club to do something about it.
Yeah, and I have to say that I have to mention actually some of the nasty and abusive comments we've seen on some of our fan reactions at the weekend. I've actually had to remove the comments section on some of our videos, so make your own judgments at home. But I suppose if we look ahead to Wolves, they are no mugs, they're absolutely flying this season in 7th and 8th, really pushing for that Europa League and tearing up the textbook for promoted teams.
Yeah, they are. They're very much so. I mean, what they've done since they've come up has been nothing short of exceptional. They've shown. I mean, whilst again they've had a lot of their transfer dealings have been incredibly shrewd. They brought in good players, but Nuno is an incredibly good manager. And he's organised that team very well. They're not free scoring, but they don't concede, and I think that's the key. They're very well organised and they play good football. And I think that this season they've bucked the trend. It'll be interesting for me to see how they do next season, because I think a few of those players will have got the attention of larger clubs, and I think even the coach will have got attention from slightly larger clubs. But they've done very well, and I have to say, fair play to them. They're a great team, and yeah, I think it's going to be a really good game on Saturday.
And they also have the small matter of an FA Cup semi-final on Sunday, and they could well be distracted by it. But like you say, they're not scoring too many, not conceding too many, and they're not also unbeatable. Recently, they've become a little bit unpredictable. Beating United in league and in cup, home and away. I think not quite away, but twice at
Yep.
home, and recently going away to Burnley and Huddersfield relegation fodders and finding a defeat. Does that give us some confidence on Saturday?
Yeah, I think what we're starting to see is a little bit of the fatigue that you tend to get with newly promoted teams. You often find that some of them, they get off to an absolute flyer, and then past Christmas, their form naturally, because they're not used to playing at this level, starts to kind of dip around February, March time. Players, obviously, they're safe now. So what is it for them to focus on? I mean, I think, do they really want the Europa League this early on? Possibly. They may want it. But I think also people, the club's ownership may be looking at it and going, well, what does Europa League get us? Ultimately, you look at us after our Europa League exploits, and you look at Burnley after their Europa League exploits. Getting that 7th place finish isn't necessarily something that you may necessarily want. But the chance of a cup final, if they win on, if they win their cup, if they win their semi, that is really, what they'll be focusing on. So I think a lot will depend on how their semi-final goes. If their semi-final goes well and they get into the cup final, I think we may see a team on Saturday that are hedging their bets somewhat.
Well, it remains to be seen, but it is going to be an exciting affair. Like you said, that both teams now playing an attractive, a good brand of football, it has to be said. But how should we approach the game? What's your prediction?
The only way we need to approach it is the same way we approach the Liverpool game, with high intensity, and we need to go out there to win. I think that the advantage we may have is that Ings will be back in contention. I think that having Danny back to spearhead the attack will be, a tremendous asset to us. We don't have too many injury concerns, which is great. So hopefully nothing happens in training. I mean, I would say that Lamina is still an ongoing injury concern, but he's not played for us this season. I think that if we play with intensity and play with the same vigour that we did, I think that we could beat Wolves. I think we could beat them 2-0 potentially. I genuinely, I think that this is the first time in a long time when I've looked at a Saints game, and I think this is once again a testament to the manager, where I'm thinking, if we do really well, we can actually go out and dominate this team and actually put them under pressure. I don't think league position matters anymore. I think that we need to put our early season form behind us and look at what we've got now. And what we've got now is a good attacking team, and I think we can win on Saturday.
Excellent, great stuff. Good to speak to you, Ben. And just remind everybody where we can catch up with you and where we can find your blog.
archersroadend.wordpress.com, at Archers Road End on Twitter, and just type it in the search bar on Facebook, on Instagram. That's where I am. Often wrong, but always got an opinion nonetheless. So it's always good. But thank you as always for having me on, and keep up the good work, guys.
Great stuff, and we'll catch up on Saturday, mate.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Big thanks once again then to Ben, the Archers Road End blog. Do make sure you give him a follow over on Twitter, and do make sure you check out his blog for more. And before we do head to our second half, just a very brief travel notice for you. And there is in fact nothing to report, amazingly, but there are no planned breaks or closures this weekend. In itself, that is a rarity, but savour it, because this is the last home game without any disruptions before the end of the season. So now is time then to speak to our opposition. What will the Wounded Wolves do this weekend? Will they be desolate or determined to put their Wembley woes behind them as they head to St Mary's? So welcome along then to our second half of this big match build-up show. Wolves are in town, back-to-back home games. It's infrequent we have these, but joining us on the line for the opposition view, Tom, or AKA the Old Gold and Black YouTube channel. Good to see you again. How are you, mate?
Yeah, well, not very good really after Sunday, but all things considered, really, this season has been very good, so okay.
Well, you're leading me perfectly to my first note here. I mean, the FA Cup semi-final, we were in your position, this time last year. We lost against Chelsea at the time. We didn't really sort of turn up. But, I mean, for the neutral, it was a brilliant, a classic semi-final, if you like. But from 2-0 up to a 3-2 defeat in extra time, how would you really sort of summarise that?
It's been very, very difficult as fans to come to terms with and to get over, really. From being 90 seconds away from being in the final, and the first final since 1960 in such a long time, it's very, very difficult to... Just the manner of the result is the hardest thing to come to terms with. If we had lost 3-0 and we hadn't have turned up, that would have been easier to deal with. But to come so close, it's been horrible. It's really horrible. And it's going to be interesting to see how they respond on Saturday. And us as fans as well, because it's a long journey down to Southampton, and whether or not we'll be vocally up for it as much as we would have been had we have won on Sunday, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how we react.
Yeah, we were chatting on our end sort of in the first half, if you like, that it could go one or two ways. Wolves really want to sort of come back raring to go. I mean, it all depended on the result on Sunday. It was, you could be flying, on cloud nine had you won that semi-final, but really down in the dumps. Well, we know the result now, though.
It did feel like our season ended on Sunday as well after the match, because really our primary aim for this season was to make sure that we were safe in the Premier League, and we did that quite a while ago. So the FA Cup run has kept the excitement going for a little bit longer. Yes, there's the race for 7th, but really we've sort of lost interest in that now, particularly if Watford win the Cup. It makes 7th irrelevant anyway. So yeah, we'll have to raise our game and raise our, motivate ourselves to make sure that we're not dropping points. There's still 6 games to go. We've still got big games to come. Arsenal and teams that are fighting down the bottom as well, that are going to be desperate to pick up points. So we've got to be careful that we don't get rolled over and end up finishing 11th or 12th and it being quite an average season really on paper.
I mean, we actually posed the question in one of our stories earlier this week. Will it be a desolate or a determined Wolves? What do you think? How do you think Nuno will be approaching this game?
Well, he talks a lot about character and about bouncing back from defeats. This is the biggest test of their character that they've ever had under Nuno in the 2 years that he's been in charge now. So I trust him to do the right thing. But as players, it's going to be very difficult to get yourselves motivated for that. But I think Southampton, with the situation that they find themselves in, you only really need 2 or 3 more wins, perhaps. Or, a win on Saturday for you would be massive. And we saw against Burnley a couple of weeks ago, a week before the semi-final, that Wolves weren't quite motivated enough and we got rolled over quite easily. So I don't know whether Nuno will let that happen again. I think that he'll be quite determined to make sure that we are professional and we are consistent in our performance, and he'll be eager to bounce back. But I personally think Southampton are going to have too much for us on Saturday. Interesting
you say that as well, because you also mentioned your defeat away at Burnley as well. What I've noticed, the Wolves are a little bit inconsistent perhaps on the road recently, and also the only team that has got 2 blemishes against the mark against the rock bottom side in the Premier League. I mean, inconsistencies, but you can go away to places like Burnley, Huddersfield, lose games like that, but then you turn over Man United, a week or so before.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fantastic this season. We can't complain really as Wolves fans or for any promoted team to be where we are. If you look at what the other 2 are, it's been superb. However, if we'd have converted the results that we should have won on paper, as you said, against Huddersfield, Burnley, we could easily be pushing for the top 4, and that's not being unrealistic. We would have picked up an extra 12 points really from those few games, and we would be knocking on that door. But that's the ambition of the club is to be in the top 4 and fighting for titles very, very soon. And if we keep on dropping points against teams that we shouldn't be, heads will roll, really.
If you look at it on paper as well, you've gone above and beyond expectations, I suppose, for this season. But I mean, even at the beginning of the season, you said we should be pushing for top half, and now you're saying within a couple of seasons you want to be pushing for top 4. So is it a natural progression, or are you sort of already overachieving?
Well, when Fosun came in 2016, they wanted to get promoted to the Premier League in 3 years, and they did it in 2. They wanted to finish in the top 10, I believe, this season, and then push for a 7th place or top 6th place next year. So depending on where we finish, we're ahead of schedule anyway. They've said openly in the press that they want to win the Premier League within 7 seasons. I mean, that's a massive thing to say, but it is step by step. We know that it can't be done overnight. Our owners have said previously that they've watched the likes of Chelsea and Man City with the money that they've had and how they've done it, and they've learned from their mistakes, and they want to be able to do it faster. And with the choices that they've made and the decisions that they've made so far, you can't complain, and you can't say that it isn't working. And I trust them to do the right thing in the summer now, because we've got a very small squad, and but looking at the game on Sunday, there were obvious weaknesses and obvious lack of depth in the squad. You look at Conor Cody, who's played almost every minute of the last 2 seasons. He was at fault for the last goal because of just that last yard of pace against somebody like that, Deulofeu, in extra time. Had we have had somebody else to call on, he would have. He might not have scored that goal. So it is looking bright, the future, and it will be a steady progression, I think, over the next couple of years.
Had you asked me at the beginning of the season, I would have been absolutely confident you would have finished in the top half. You look good. You steamrolled the championship as well. But I mean, you could say right now you're sort of the best of the rest. And had you asked us when we were defeated at the Molineux earlier this season, we would have been clamouring to be in your position at the time. And you've got a game over on Leicester as well, vying for that 7th spot. I mean, could you be good enough for Europa League? And do the fans want Europa League? And do the management want it straight away?
Well, there's a split in opinion amongst the fans, because we've seen the likes of Burnley and other teams in the past who have really struggled to cope with the early start to the season. If we were to finish in 7th, I think the season would start mid-July, which is not really an attractive proposition. However, then the rest of the fans are thinking, well, it might not come along too often, this chance of playing European football. We've waited since 1981, the last time we played in the UEFA Cup. So you can't turn your nose up at it, really. You have to take it while it's there. The squad is quite small. I think that's a major concern for lots of the fans and perhaps the management as well, that we would need an extra 4 or 5 players. We've got a squad of 18 at the moment, outfield players, which I think is the smallest in the Premier League. We have had the best injury record, but that's not going to last forever. We've been very, very lucky over the last 2 years. Personally, I think I would quite like it, but I wouldn't like to go through all the qualifying that you would have to do if you finish 7th. So, we've missed out on the opportunity of going straight into the group stage by losing on Sunday. So, yeah.
We know firsthand that it's not always a given. We were eliminated in the early stage. And then just take a prime example, Burnley this season, West Ham a couple of seasons ago, out in the early stages as well. I mean, you could say you've been also been boosted by the permanent transfer of Raul Jimenez, £30 million. That's a real statement.
Oh, absolutely. And we've already committed to paying around about 15 million as well for Leander Dendoncker, the centre midfielder, in the summer as well. So our summer spending is already up to 45 million, which is unbelievable, really, for Wolves, who we've seen for years underspend and be a little bit prudent in their transfer policy. So I expect there to be a few more as well, and upwards of 120 million on players, I think, in the summer. Jimenez has been, I would argue, the best striker outside the top 6 in the Premier League. I think he's even better than Chelsea's strikers as well. So we've been very, very lucky, and without his goals, I think we certainly would have been looking at a different season this year.
And you've also mentioned just a second ago about your injury record. You're the only team in the Premier League right now without an injury in your physio room, and it's going to be a really stern test for you on Saturday as well. Obviously, we want to secure our safety, and Wolves are a bit of a wounded animal.
Yeah, of course, the game on Sunday as well was exhausting, and Jimenez wasn't actually moving for the last 5 minutes of the game. He was just standing on the edge of the 18-yard box waiting for play to catch up with him. So it'll be interesting to see if there is any rotation. But it's just been announced today as well. The Wolves are going to Marbella after the game at Southampton on Saturday. So there's that for warm weather training. So perhaps we have also seen it's happened twice before that they've gone to Marbella and they've lost the game before they've gone to Marbella. So there's a lot of omens suggesting that there'll be a Southampton win on Saturday.
Excellent. Well, I like the sound of that then. Just wrap us up with them in your score prediction. I mean, the last 2 times we have played, you defeated us at Molyneux in September, and obviously, last season in the League Cup.
Yeah, but I think you will have the upper hand on Sunday. Saturday. Sorry, I think the emotion and the draining event from Sunday, I think, is still going to be hanging over the Wolves players and management and fans, and I think that's going to be too much for us to overcome, and I can see you nicking it 1-0. Obviously, it's a cup final for you, like every game is going to be until you are safe, and that's going to do it for you, I think.
Well, thank you very much then, Tom. Just remind our listeners, viewers, if they want to catch up with you as well, just tell everybody where we can find you.
Just on YouTube on The Old Gold and Black.
Excellent stuff. Good to speak to you, and we will speak again next season.
Yeah, let's hope so, yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah. All the best.
Thanks again then to Tom, the Old Gold and Black YouTube channel. Do make sure you check back over on his page for a match review after the game. I'm sure there'll be one. And do go ahead and give him a subscribe. I'm sure it will help. But that does pretty much wrap up this week's match build-up show. Before we go, do let us know your score predictions ahead of the weekend, and a win at the weekend. Is it too soon to suggest we're all but safe? Can we already use the S word? Let me know in the comments. But the power is in our hands. So thank you very much then for watching and listening along. Only one thing left for me to say is, come on, you Saints.